President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber will hear testimony of a witness through TCW 817 in relation to Phnom Krau Security Center. Mr. Am Hoi, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Greffier, Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present. Mr. Nguyen Chi is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. The witness who is to testify today, that is through TCW 817, confirms through his best knowledge he has no relationship by blood or by law to any other two accused, that is Nguyen Chi and Khieu Sampon, or through any of the civil parties admitted in this case. The witness took an oath before the Iron Club State True this morning, and there is no reserved witness today. President, thank you, Mr. Am Hoi. The chamber now decides on the request by Nguyen Chi. The chamber has received a waiver from Nguyen Chi, dated 11 March 2016, which states that due to his health, that is headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his right to be present at the 11 March 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nguyen Chi by the duty doctor for the accused at ECCC dated 11 March 2016, which notes that Nguyen Chi has back pain and cannot sit for long, and recommends that the chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nguyen Chi his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the Evidentiary personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nguyen Chi can follow. That applies for the whole day. Court officer, please usher the witness into the courtroom. President, good morning, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness Nate Savad. President, thank you, Mr. Nate Savad. Are you known by any other names? Answer, Tha. My native name is Nate Tha. Question, and what is your official name? For example, the name that appears on your identity card. Answer, it is Nate Savad. Question, and when were you born? I was born in 1942. Thank you, Mr. Nesavad, and please wait for the microphone to be operational before you speak. Otherwise, your voice does not go through the interpretation system. Although you speak in Khmer, it has to be simultaneously interpreted into the working languages of the ECCC, that is English and French. You need to have a slight pause before you answer the question so that you also have a chance to think of how to respond. And please limit your response to the question. And where were you born? Answer, I was born in Piem Chimiet village, Nong Kilik commune, Koh Nhai district, Mondulkiri province. Question, in the document, it is stated that you were born in Laos and you only moved to Cambodia when you were 11 years old. Is that correct? Answer, yes, I was born in Ba village, Dam Nau commune, Keng Ko district, Savannakhet province. And when I was 10 years old, I came to live in Piem Chimiet village, Chimiet commune, Koh Nhai district, Mondulkiri province. Question, and where is your present address? Answer, I lived in Piem Chimiet village, Nong Kilik commune, Koh Nhai district, Mondulkiri province. Question, and what is your current occupation? Answer, I worked in the farm and in the plantation, and I also raise livestock. Question, what are the names of your parents? Answer, my father is Nate and my mother is Tum. Question, what is your wife's name and how many children do you have? Answer, my wife is Tui Chan and we have 5 children. President, thank you, Mr. Nate Savad. The graphic made an oral report that you are not related by blood or by law to any of the 2 accused, that is Nunchi and Kir Sampon, or through any civil parties admitted in this case. Is that correct? Answer. I am not related to any of them. That is Nunchi and Kyo Sampong. Question. And have you taken an oath before your appearance? That is before the Iron Club statue to the east of the chamber? Answer. Yes, I have. President, Mr. Netzawat, the Chamber would like to inform you of your rights and obligations as a witness. Regarding your rights, as a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. And that is your right against self-incrimination. On your obligations, as a witness in the proceedings before the Chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to those questions may incriminate you, as the Chamber has just informed you of your right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that a bench or parties pose to you. And Mr. Netta, have you been interviewed by investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, how many times, when, and where? Answer. I was interviewed twice. One was in Jimit, and on the other occasion it was in Ratanakiri province. President, thank you. Before you appear before us, have you read, reviewed, or have it read aloud? That is your written record of the interviews with the OCRJ investigators in order to refresh your memory? Answer. Yes, I read some yesterday, and I can recall parts of the written records of my interview. Question. And to your best recollection, do the written records of your interview reflect your answers that you gave to the investigators? Answer. Yes, it is consistent. I refer to the written record of my interview. It is consistent. President, thank you. And pursuant to Rule 91B of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber hands the floor first to the co-prosecutors to put questions before other parties, and the combined time for the co-prosecutors and the lead co-lawyers is 2 sessions. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Netzvat. My name is Dale Lysak. I'll be asking you some questions this morning. I want to start, if I may, with just a few background questions about yourself and also the province that you're from, Mondulkiri. Can you tell us a little bit about Mondulkiri province including back in the 1970s. Was Mondulkiri a highly populated province in Cambodia?
There were quite a large population living in Mondulkiri, but I cannot tell you the details. I cannot tell you how many thousands of people were living in the province.
Let me see if I can help you. We have a statement from a witness who worked in the Mondulkiri Provincial Information Office. Your Honors, this is document E3/5178. He said, and I quote, during the Khmer Rouge period, the province was home to 19,000 people. 19,000 people. Does that refresh your memory? Does that number sound about right to you, Mr. Witness?
That is about right. The number was more than 10,000.
You yourself are an ethnic Lao. Were there many ethnic minorities who lived in Mondulkiri?
Yes, there were other ethnicities, namely Phnom, Tumpun, and a few others that lived in the Mondulkiri province. There could be more, but I could not get all.
Are you able to provide us with an approximation of what percentage of the population of Mondulkiri were ethnic minorities back in the 70s? Was it the majority of the population, less, most of the population? Can you give us some sense of how many of the people in Mondulkiri were ethnic minorities?
I can only give you an estimate. There was about 6 to 7% of ethnic minorities living in the province.
Can you tell us, back in the 70s, before the Khmer Rouge, or back in the 60s perhaps, before the Khmer Rouge were in power in Mondulkiri, what were the most common languages that were spoken there among the various ethnic minorities?
The Khmer language was generally used.
Were there any other languages that most of the people spoke in addition to Khmer?
And the Phnom language. That is all in Mondulkiri province. So the Khmer language was the first language, or the primary language. Phnom was the second major language, and then there were other people who spoke various other ethnic languages, including Laotians and Charai language.
And can you tell us what year was it when the Khmer Rouge gained control of Mondulkiri province?
It was 1970.
បាទឆ្នាំ70
Turning to your background, sir, you state in your OCIJ interview, E3 7695, that you joined the revolution in 1966 to 1967, and that you joined the revolution with a person named Pan Korn, alias Chun. Can you tell us who Pan Korn, alias Chun, was?
The name was Pan Khon, and I joined the revolution around 1967 or 68.
And can you clarify for me, was it Pan Khon who introduced you to the revolution, or did the two of you join together at the same time? And if so, who was it that introduced you to the revolution?
There were people who actually persuaded us to join the revolutionary movement, and those were Kampun and Tahom, and they were there in PMG village.
And after joining the revolution, did you ever become a member of the party?
I became a party's member in 1970. That was when I was inducted into the Communist Party.
And who was it that inducted or introduced you to the party in 1970?
It was Kampun and Home.
Now, in your OCIJ interview, you also describe how after you joined the revolution, you worked as a messenger from 1968 to 1970. During that time, did you ever escort or guard any senior leaders of the Khmer Rouge who were traveling through Mondulkiri?
បាទ
I was appointed as a messenger and also to escort guests from my location to other locations. That is from Tung Pong Mountain to Koh Klem River.
ហើយចូលមក70
And I was no longer a messenger by 1970, and I was assigned to be a member of the economic section to go and purchase unhusked rice and to look after cattle.
ទេជាស្រូវពូជស្រូវអី
So I was tasked to purchase unhusked rice and corn. And later on, I was assigned to be part of the economic section of a hospital. And that's due to a number of people who were admitted to that hospital.
Thank you. I'll ask you a few questions about each of these positions. Let me start with the period you were a messenger back in 1968 to 1970. Who were the party leaders, Khmer Rouge leaders, who you escorted through Mondulkiri?
បាទមានកំភួននឹងហម
As I said, there were Kampun and Home.
Were there party leaders of the Khmer Rouge who weren't based in Mondulkiri but were traveling through the province who you were assigned to guard or escort?
អានេះទីតាំង
Answer. At the time, it depended on the locations. And later on, after the liberation, the location was in Koh Nhek.
បាទ
Let me see if I can refresh your memory on this, Mr. Witness. In your OCIJ interview, E3/7695, reading from Khmer ERN 00236-715, English 00239-485 through 486, French 00274-815. This is what you said in your OCIJ statement, quote, "In 1968, I worked as a messenger escorting senior cadres from Tonpong to Kalem in Konek district. I used to escort Kun alias Tuch, who later became Secretary of the North Zone. Other persons whom I used to escort included Pol Pot's wife, named Q Poneri, Tiv Ol, and Noon Chea." Is that correct, Mr. Witness? Were there some occasions where you escorted Noon Chea when he was traveling through Mondulkiri?
Answer. That is correct. I at one time accompanied him from Kampong to that location.
ហើយទីអ៊ុល
And also Tiwol. From the A to Kalam.
អានេះហើយតាធុចតាគុណ
Ta Thuj, Ta Kun, they were traveling together, and I also accompanied the two later individuals. But my task was to accompany them from Tunle to Kampong, and when they crossed to the other side of the river, it was others who were responsible for accompanying them to other locations.
As I'm not familiar with the locations you're describing, were they traveling north in the direction to go towards Ratnakiri, or were they traveling in some other direction when you accompanied them?
Answer. It was uh, in the north from Tompong.
តមអញ្ចឹងហើយ
So usually I accompanied them back and forth. And sometimes I accompany those individuals back to Kampong, said the witness.
And were there soldiers or militia who were assigned to assist you when you were accompanying Nunjaya and Tatuch on these journeys?
អាហ្នឹងវា
Answer. When Tan Nunjia went to that location, there were some soldiers with him. Around 20 of them were with him. Those people were soldiers, and I was with them at that time.
គាត់ទៅជួនដំណើរតែមិនមានធំដុំ
So it was not a large trip at the time.
And how did you know that the persons you were accompanying were Nunjaya and Tatuch?
ដឹងយ៉ាងម៉េចអាហ្នឹង
Answer. I do not understand about that issue. It was others people who were responsible for accompanying them after Tongpong. I was only accompanying them up to Tongpong, and then others people were responsible for accompanying those people to other locations, as I said.
I understand that. What I was asking you is how you knew who these people were. Did they introduce themselves to you, or when you were given this assignment, were you told who it was that you would be escorting?
Answer. When they saw me, in fact, those people were with Tahom and Piang, and at the time they said those people were Nunjia and Tiwol. So I learned that from those people they spoke about that issue to one another. So this is what I can recall.
ហើយមិនមែនគេប្រាប់ថានេះតានួនជាឬស្អី
They did not tell me directly, but on some occasion I overheard what they were speaking about those people.
Thank you. Let me turn to the positions you held subsequent to being a messenger after 1970. You've told us that you first were assigned to an economics unit, and then later in 1976 were assigned to work in a hospital. Let's start with the economics unit or office that you worked at. You indicate in your OCIJ statement, well, first of all, who was the chairman of the economics office that you worked for after 1970?
Answer. The chief of the economics section was Ta Kampuan. He was also the sector committee. To the communist people, he was known as the chief of the economics section. So I was only a member within that economic section responsible for buying rice. That happened in 1970 up to 1976.
You also identify in your interview a person named Son Tan. Who was the person? You indicate he was your immediate superior, that he was the chairman of a unit and you were the deputy. Can you tell us who Son Tan was and what unit he was responsible for?
Answer. He was chief or secretary of the ministry. Ta Sun Thon, Ta Chuan, and me at that time working in the Ministry of Economy, said the witness. They were not part of sectors committee. These people were responsible for commerce and economy. I am referring to Sun Thon, who was the chief of economy at the time.
So, do I understand correctly that Kam Poon was on the sector committee, the person overall responsible for economics, and yourself, Chun, and Son Tan worked at the ministry or office that was under Kam Poon. Do I understand correctly?
Answer, yes, you are right. Kampuan was sector committee, had overall responsibility for economy, and I, together with Son Thon and Chuen, were within the office of economy, directly responsible for trading.
And was the Office of Economy the same as the Commerce Office, or was it a different office than the Commerce Office?
Answer. Kampuan was in a different office, and Sun Thon was working within a different office responsible for commerce, and I was responsible for economic affairs at Koh Nhiet.
There are references to the Commerce Office as the K-16 office. What I wanted to clarify, did you work at the K-16 office, or were you at a different office than K-16?
Answer. I worked in office 21, currently number 9 of village Srayan Ongkum. The name, the designated number was K21.
Did you know an office called K-16, and if so, where was it located and who was in charge of K-16?
Answer. Office 16 was for Kampoon, the sectors committee responsible for economy.
Thank you for clarifying that. The next position, you indicated that in 1976 you were assigned to work in the economics unit of a hospital. Was that the sector hospital? And if so, where was the sector hospital located?
Answer. That hospital was belonged to the sector, and the actual location of that hospital at the time is now in number 9, the village.
So this is the same village in Konek, the same place where you had worked at the economics office, Office 21. Is that correct?
Answer. That is correct. The same location where I used to work within the K21. K21 was before located in this area as well.
And when you worked at the hospital, who were the chairman and the deputy responsible for the sector hospital?
Answer. The home had overall supervision over the hospital, and then the Pa, Niang Bolai, they were also responsible for that hospital.
And later, we're going to talk about a period where you were detained at an office called K17. What I wanted to just ask you now is, how far were the sector hospital and Office 21 where you worked, were these close to K17, the sector secretary's office? What was the distance between the hospital, the economics office, and the K17 office where the sector secretary was based?
Answer. Regarding the distance, it was perhaps 1 kilometer away from hospital to K17, where the home was located, said the witness.
Before we turn to the events at K17, one other background question I wanted to ask you about, Mr. Witness. Were you a relative of Northeast Zone Secretary Ya, who's also known as Men San? Were you related to Ya?
Answer. He was my brother-in-law. He married my younger sister.
What was the name of your younger sister who married Ya?
Her birth name was Netma, and currently, which is her new name, is Net Nguyen.
When did she marry Ya?
Answer. In 1968.
During the Khmer Rouge regime, did you ever meet Ya, the Northeast Zone Secretary? Did you ever see him? And if so, can you describe to the court when it was that you met Ya?
Answer. I met him in the forest and then later on in Tulkok. When I was hospitalized in the hospital in Phnom Penh, I met him also in Tulkok area, and I also went to his residence. He was assigned to be responsible for the northeast of within Krajes, and when I was in hospital, I also met him, and then I went back to Mundolgiri.
What happened to Ya during the Khmer Rouge regime?
Answer. I did not witness that. I learned from others that he was tied up and killed. I do not know whether it's true since I did not witness that.
Who was it that told you he was tied up and killed?
Answer. I heard from others. I do not know whether it's true. I heard from others saying about that. Or it is all I could remember.
Did your sister ever tell you what happened to her husband, Ya?
Answer. Regarding my sister, after the arrest of Taya, she formulated a letter and sent it to me at Koh Nyek. She said she wanted to go and live in Mundolgiri after that time, and I was afraid of others after seeing the letter, and I forwarded that letter to Tahom. He said nothing, and he ignored that letter and kept it to aside. And I have never, and from that time, I did not hear about my sister. I, in fact, at the time wanted my sister to go live in Garnier. I felt pity on her since I heard that her husband suffered from bad ordeal. However, she, together with her 2 children, survived.
That's something I just wanted to clarify. During the Khmer Rouge regime, was your sister ever arrested? And can you clarify for us whether your sister, who was married to Ya, survived the Khmer Rouge regime?
Answer. From the news that I received, I heard that nothing happened to her. And I, at one time, thought that she may not lived through the period, since from that time onward I never received any news from her.
Let me just read to you an excerpt from an interview you gave to DC Cam, document E3/7696, Khmer 00231-537, English 00384-159, French 00384-264. I quote, "Once he was arrested," referring to Ya, "his wife was still there and sent me a letter. Then I heard the arrest and smashing happened. Question, who were arrested? Answer, my younger sister, Ya's wife, was." End of quote. Do I understand correctly that your sister was initially not arrested at the same time as Ya, but later on was arrested and disappeared? Do I understand correctly, Mr. Witness?
Answer, yes, that is correct. It did not happen at the same time during her husband's arrest. She was later on arrested.
And have you ever seen your sister again since she was arrested?
Answer, no. I did not see her again.
តាំងពីឆ្នាំอะไร
I did not see her again from 1975. Never saw her. I never saw her. After the letter was sent to me, I did not see her again.
មិនដឹងជារស់មិនដឹងជា
I did not know at the time whether she died or was living. From the news, I did not have any hope that she was living. I also thought that her children did not live also at that time.
I want to turn now to some questions about some events you described in your statements. Were you arrested by the Khmer Rouge during 1977? And if so, can you describe to the court how it came about that you were arrested? Can you describe the events that took place leading up to and the day of your arrest?
Answer, I was arrested in 1977 in January. And then I was placed and detained for 1 month. My relatives, my children, my nieces and my nephews and children and I were all arrested and detained for 1 month. And then we were all released and assigned to work in work sites. We were there at work sites for 2 months, and later on we were freed by the Vietnamese in 1979.
បាទតែប៉ុណ្្នឹងហើយ
This is all that I could recall.
ហើយទៀតគេថា
And at that time, they said Kampoon and Sonton betrayed the regime, and it was said that they had link to the Vietnamese. That was the reason of the arrests.
ណាតើឃើញវៀតណាម
How could we had relation with the Vietnamese at the time, since we did not see them in the location?
In regards to the time, the month or the time at which you were arrested, we've heard testimony in the first trial in case 2 and from the last witness about an incident in Phnom Penh in which Sector 105 Secretary Hom was supposedly killed by Deputy Secretary Kam Poon. What I don't want to ask you about those events. What I do want to know is, were you arrested before or after the death of Hom and Kam Poon? Was it before or after their deaths that you were arrested?
I believe there were conflicts between Hom and Kampoon. As for me, I was one of the subordinates of Kampoon. However, I believe the same thing happens to those under the subordination of Hom. So there were two separate groups. One belongs to Hom and one belongs to Kampoon. And Hom came from Communal. He also had his relatives living in that area.
In your OCIJ statement, E37695, Khmer ERN 00236-715, English 00239-486, French 00274-816. You state, quote, shortly before they arrested me, Lang, or Hom, and Kampoon shot each other dead in Phnom Penh. My question to you was, how long after the deaths of Hom and Kampoon, how long after that was it when you were arrested? You say it was shortly after that, but how many days or weeks, to the best of your recollection?
It was not long. It was about 1 week after Hom and Kampoon killed each other in Phnom Penh. And after that, there was this policy of arresting us.
You've indicated that there were other people who were arrested. How many other people, to the best of your recollection, were arrested around the same time? And who were the other people who were also arrested?
I cannot recall them all. As for my relatives who were arrested, I could recall some of their names. and altogether there were about 80 people who were arrested and detained at where I was detained, and that included both men, women, and children. And only a small number of the detainees were Khmer, as the majority were ethnic minority people. So there were numerous people, and I could not tell them all.
មើលឋានៈកម្ម
As for the cadres, there was Ta Chanda, Sukut, and Sinhu. The last two are still living, and I cannot recall other names.
Were the people who were arrested all or mostly people who were relatives of Kampoon or people who worked in the economics offices that fell under Kampoon's responsibility?
There were only a small number of relatives of Kampoon, as the majority were those workers who worked under the supervision in the office of Kampoon. Not everyone was related to Kampoon, but they were workers or his subordinates.
You've indicated already that you had worked under Kampoon in the economics office. Were you also related to Kampoon?
Yes, I'm related to his wife. His wife was the aunt of my wife.
What was the name of Kampoon's wife, and what did she do in Sector 105?
Lapt was the name of Kampoon's wife. She was also known as Bopa.
ហើយគាត់
She also worked in that office. She led the people to work in that office as part of the economics work, that is to work in the rice fields and to work in the plantation. She did not involve in any politics.
And when you say she also worked at the office, are you talking about the K16 office, Kampoon's office, or the Office 21, the economics office where you had worked?
She worked at the economic office, that is at the K16. Because her husband was in charge of the sector's economics.
អានេះប្រពន្ធកំពូនទេ
Here I refer to Kampoon's wife. However, herself did not have any major role. She would lead the workers to engage in the rice field or the plantation.
What happened to Kampoon's wife after his death? What happened to Lap alias Bopa?
did not know what happened to her because I was arrested after about a week after Kampoon and Home killed each other, and I believed she also was arrested along with her children and family members during that time.
Did you ever see her again after you were released from your detention?
No, I never saw her again because after I was released from the detention, I was sent to a work site. I was not allowed to travel to Kohnye area, and we were instructed only to go and work in the northern direction. And I did not know what happened to her because she had also been arrested. And her children actually fled, and the children are now living in Kampong Cham.
កូនចិញ្ចឹម
In fact, I correct myself, I refer to only an adopted daughter who is still living in Kampong Cham.
What ethnicity was Kampoon?
កំពូល
Kampoon was Laotian and Tampoon, so it was a mixed ethnicity of Laotian and Tampoon.
Were you working at the sector hospital at the time of your arrest? And if so, were there other people from the sector hospital who were arrested on the same day or around the same time as you?
That was a sector's hospital. However, I worked for the economic unit for that hospital. For the leadership level at the hospital, there were Bolay and Boli who were female, and they were arrested as well.
ហើយក្រៅពីនោះ
And I cannot recall any other individuals. So, to my understanding, there were three, Bolay Boli, who were in a leadership level, and myself, all three.
What was you say two women, Bulai and Buli. The first woman, Bulai, what was her position at the hospital, and who was she married to?
Bolai was a chief, and she was my superior. She married Ra, so Ra was her husband. And Ra was a nephew of Ta Kampoon.
And how about the other woman, Bu Lai? What was her position at the hospital, and who was she married to?
Bu Li was in charge of midwifery, And her full name is Bulin Thon, and she married a wife.
ជាជនជាតិ
And in fact, she came from Ratanakiri and she was a Tumpun.
The day you were arrested, how were you transported? Where were you taken, and how were you transported there? Let's start with that.
They brought a vehicle to take us at the K-17, and after we got off the vehicle got into the house, they instructed us to stand, and they tied us up. And they placed us to the corner of that house.
បាទអរគុណ
President, thank you. It is now convenient to have a short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break time and invite him back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ